Hi, everybody. Mary Jordan again, your librarian here at SCTTC, also from the Center for Teaching and Learning. This is another one of our discussions, just our recaps of the in-person discussion that we had with the library, the CTL, the Accessibilities Office, and the Multicultural Center. We do all this great stuff, and we want to make sure that even if you didn't have a chance to come in person, you could at least get the gist of it here. But today, you're going to get a little bit more than just the gist because today we have guest host Kaia Swenson. Kaia came to this in-person discussion and she shared these slides with us. So for everybody who wasn't able to be there, she's going to share them again now. All right. I'm clearly all excited. And okay, Kaia Swenson, I'm sorry, I should introduce, is also, she has been our Accessibilities Office graduate student intern. We are thrilled to have her, and we are thrilled to have her discussing understanding privilege and power dynamics. Kaia, this is where I wave my hands in magical excitement. Take it away, Kaia.
Well, thank you again, Mary. I appreciate that introduction, and I'll go ahead and get started.
Sounded
So,
grown up and professional, didn't it? I felt it. I felt that.
very, very much so. So the topic for this employee discussion was understanding privilege and power dynamics as part of the SCTCC employee discussion series. And so with this presentation, I started out with some definitions and activity, followed by discussion. And this will be a relatively short presentation, but I know Mary will contribute, and I will also contribute to some of that conversation that we were having.
I'm already excited that Kaya has her resources on here. Always have
All right.
resources.
And
If
resources
you
as
look
well.
below on this video, you'll be able to see some links to resources. Yeah, always cite your sources, folks. Kaya is a model to us all. All right, go
I
ahead.
try. All right. So, starting with definitions. These were adapted from the article titled White Privilege Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack by Peggy McIntosh. And uh, for this discussion,
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna jump in too and
oh
just
yeah,
before we do that, this is not my area of expertise, but I definitely, oh wow, look at that. I got to raise my hand.
I guess.
It this is a resource that a lot of people use, and so if you're new to the discussion on white privilege, this might be a good place to start. I've used this in other areas, and I've seen people reference this. So yeah, Kaya's really
Mhm.
bringing us a nice standard top resource for us to discuss.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, I feel like it's kind of foundational. I know it's a little dated, but I feel like it's kind of a foundational um, just piece of writing about privilege and white privilege, especially. And I remember being one of my assigned readings in a social justice and student development course I took last year. So I feel like it's very relevant still
You can build
today.
on resources, and even if you can say, oh, well, this is where we started and we built and
Hmm.
we added new ideas, but that the foundational things are still good.
Yeah. Okay. So in this article, it's described as white privilege being the unearned advantages that white people have in society, um, often without realizing it. And it's kind of interesting, and the article lists all these different privileges that the author has, and that, you know, a majority of white people also have because of their skin color. And uh, it's a lot of times you don't think about it. I found, and unless it's, kind of explicitly pointed out to you or just brought to your attention. And this can definitely make life easier for privileged identities, including people that are white, compared to people of color. And then oppression or marginalization happens when marginalized groups, including people of color, face systemic disadvantages and barriers um, that can prevent them from having equal opportunities. Um, Pretty straightforward definition, a little abstract, but we kind of can go into that further in another slide or two here. And then the power dynamics include the unequal relationships between groups. For example, white people and people of color, and where one group experiences more power and benefits versus the other because of their identity, their privileged identity. And let's keep rolling here. So systemic, I included this slide because when I first was learning about this, what systemic is, and kind of it was a part of, one of my courses. I felt like it was, a little hard for me to wrap my head around, and um, I still feel like it's something that it's worth talking about and thinking about, and it's talking about like systems, laws, policies, cultural norms that are kind of embedded in society and culture, um, institutions, practices that favor certain groups, um, privileged identities like white people, and disadvantage others, like people of color, that can create inequality over time. So that was a big, big definition, but some examples are, you know, plenty. Um, but Mary, if you want to jump in here, I'm trying to kind of think of like a specific example that
So
I'm even
I
thinking of
have a great
recently.
one.
But
So we have this really good book in the library that I am not remembering the name of off the top of my head, but look below because I will try to put it down there. But it's all about this researcher did a lot of work in Minneapolis about redlining through the history of
hmm
Minneapolis and really started that discussion of how the specific laws of the city and of the state of Minnesota not just favored white people in buying real estate over black people, but really just absolutely, completely, legally discriminated. That
hmm
book, that discussion that took place about the injustices that took place in Minneapolis, and I'm going to say continue to take place because a bunch of these covenants and deeds have not been changed. Uh, that really started a big national discussion over the evil of redlining.
hmm
And I mean, how do you fight against that if you're just a person who's trying to buy a house?
hmm
You really can't. It's been very interesting to sort of watch that conversation develop over the last several years. And I've been to a couple of museums now that have talked about it. And just, I mean, what a classic example of blatant unfairness.
hmm
No way to think of this as anything except just blatantly systemically unfair.
Yes, yes, great example. Thank you.
Grr. But now I'm mad.
Yeah, deep breaths. And let's move to the next slide. So when we met, we had a handout that included like a image of the academic wheel of privilege. And essentially, when I did research on this graphic, it came from a like a study that was completed by a group of researchers in higher education. And they utilized this wheel and kind of situated the different authors on this wheel. And the way they ordered the authors on the study was based on the point system they applied for privilege. So essentially, the authors that had the least amount of privilege, according to this wheel, and so that would be essentially um, identities that are more towards the edge of the wheel versus the center, were listed first, and then kind of going in order, in a way to kind of bring some equity in um, their viewpoint to the ordering of authors on a paper. So I thought that was an interesting kind of background as to where this came from. I don't know if you have any other insight about it, Mary.
I
I
well,
might be
the when I
misinterpreting this whole
first saw
origin.
this wheel, actually, and I mean I've seen other similar ones, but I believe this was the first time that I saw this wheel when you handed this out, and I actually folded up the paper and brought it back to my office, and it's over there on my wall. I'm sorry you can't see it, but it's right there. Um, it's I like this because I've had a lot of discussion with people who say, I don't understand what you mean when you say white privilege. I'm a white person, but I've always had to work. That's not what it means. That's not what white privilege means. And I think this graphic kind of makes it a little more obvious uh, what what privilege does mean. So I'm a person from the endurance sports world, and what really spoke to me was privilege is like the wind behind you. So if you walk or you run or I ride bikes, wind behind you is awesome. You're going really fast. You feel really good. I'm clearly so amazing today because you can't feel the wind behind you, but it's pushing you. It's making your day easier. When you turn around and now you're going into the wind, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not doing anything different. I'm the same person. I'm just as awesome, but now I'm being slowed down. Now things are harder for me due to something that's completely outside my control. That kind of spoke to me in the same way
Mhm.
that this spoke to me. I am a person who has, I always like to say, I mean, two fistfuls of privileges. That's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with my having fun privilege, but being aware that my fun privilege is not a fun privilege that other people have, I can look at this and say, oh, I'm extremely educated person. I mean, sure, I worked really hard to become an extremely educated person, but a lot of people work really hard and they still don't get to have what I have. I need to be aware of that and be thinking and remembering it's a privilege. Just because you work for it, it's still a privilege. I don't
Mhm.
know. It made me think a lot of thoughts here, and it made me kind of think, oh, right, right. I should be aware of things like I'm sorry, I don't think you can see exactly what I'm pointing at, but the gray line here with the caregiving.
Mhm.
Um, I know a lot of people who are taking care of kids, but I mean, I'm at the age now. I know a lot of people who are taking care of their parents, and
Mhm.
I don't have to do that. I don't have kids at home. I don't have parents living with me. But yeah, I mean, it
Mhm.
makes your day so much harder when you have to do that. And I don't know. Now I'm just chatting, but this made me think a lot of thoughts. And so I hope that when you at home are looking at it, it makes you think a lot of thoughts too. And you'll see, I mean, in some places you're the small circle, and in some places you're the big circle. And how does that, how is all of that mixed together impacting your your life? And I always say to students when we talk about different kinds of tests and identity things, sure, look at you, but then also look at everybody else. How does this impact if I'm that circle, that circle, that circle, but my student is, oh, wow, you know what? My student is that circle, that, oh, okay, you know what? I need to be thinking about my lesson for tomorrow in a whole new way. Or if I am a
Mhm.
student, I need to be thinking about how I'm approaching going to school in a whole different way. And the more
Mhm.
thoughts you can think about yourself and other people and what can we do to make sure that everybody is getting the best opportunity they can get. This is academic. So while they're in school, that's everybody's responsibility. That's that as I mean, mostly talking to teachers and employees here. But I
Hmm.
mean, if you're involved in the academic world, in providing that academic opportunity to people, you need to be looking at things like this and figuring out how you can make opportunities really meaningful to people, actually work, instead of just saying, I gave you this, but it's not my fault you're homeless, and you couldn't take advantage of it. Anyway, okay, sorry,
Hmm.
I'm done thinking.
Yeah.
I
No,
really
those
like
are,
this though. I felt like this spoke to me.
yeah, I really liked it as well when I came across it. And I had seen like the wheel of privilege before, just not like with the academic spin on it.
Right.
And so um and it also made me think of I'm gonna like nerd out a little bit, but
You're in the
I
right place.
okay. So I had a couple different classes in student development, focused on, college age for my program. And one of the theories or models included, I hope I can say this correctly, it was the model of multiple um, identities. Oh, something basically model of multiple identity development, something like that.
Sure.
MMDI for short. Anyway, it just talked about the different identities that students can have and how they're all kind of like intersecting and intertwining with each other around this center, this ball of the student in the center. And it also kind of talked about how these identities sometimes can be closer to the center and some can be further away. And that is basically like what is that student identified with most strongly, or what are they really
Right.
what is most pressing to them, like what aspect of their identity, and that can shift and change and evolve over time. And I know this is kind of like a different way of looking at that, with maybe you being in the center, um but it's different, but it's kind of similar in that you are kind of looking at your identities, you're looking at your students' identities, um, where are they falling in this wheel of privilege, but also like where are these identities falling for the student? Like what is they're more like salient or just really kind of strong like identity for them, and why. And so it was interesting to kind of learn about that theory and then kind of apply it to myself at the time. And then, put in the whole like privilege and power dynamics into it as well. So, yeah,
It's
I like,
interesting. Well, and I feel like too, I mean, I mean, I know you at home, you would never think of this, but the idea that the small circles are not good, they're just privileged. The large circles are not bad. That just means maybe less less privileged, more difficulty. And I'm thinking specifically, I'm looking at the purple one here. This it says institution. So it says the most privileged is the research intensive institution, and the least privileged is the teaching intensive. Um, and so I find that I spent a lot of time kind of turning that one over because I am from a background of being at research intensive universities, and they are the fancy places. And you are privileged by having been associated with fancy schools. But I very strongly feel that that's not the best way to have an education. And that if instead you go to a less fancy school, and I wave my hand to the one that I'm sitting in right now, where it's teaching intensive and you have teachers who care and employees who care and staff who care and people who are interested in the teaching, you are having a better experience. So I think that one's a good example of how the
mhm.
little circle is privilege. I mean, if you look at somebody's resume or you look at somebody's material and it's like, oh, I went to Harvard. Of course you went to Harvard. I mean, that's very privileged. That's very amazing. But did you have the best educational opportunity there because your professors were too busy to spend time with you. But instead, did you go to a different school that maybe is not immediately fancily known, but the people that you had that you worked with, they had time to spend with you? It's not privilege. I'm not going to, not me, a person is not going to look at your resume and say, "Oh, you went to State University? Oh my goodness, that's so fantastic." But th you know you got a better education. So just because you're the big circle, it's not a bad thing. It
Hmm.
just means you're not automatically getting the level of respect, the level of privilege. You're not getting the ease that might come with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not saying this very well, but I hope you see where I'm going with it.
Hmm.
These are
Hmm.
not value judgments,
Mm-mm.
just which one of these circles makes your life automatically a little bit easier, and which one may make your life a little bit better, even if not easier. I'm not
Hmm.
saying this very well.
Yeah, like the
Study
wind
the
at your
wheel for
back.
yourself, people.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, okay, it popped in my head that that model I was trying to name was the model of multiple dimensions of identity. In case anyone's interested in looking that up, it's a one of my favorite student development
MMDI,
theories.
yeah, and I have seen those. I have passed those out, and yeah, I
Hmm.
like it. I mean, there's not like a right way to look at any of this. There's not a
Mm-mm.
this is the one true answer. Uh, but I'm just always a favor of things like this that make me think, make me look at this in a new way and say, oh, yeah. I mean, I spent most of my life at pointing at the chart here, renting apartments. And that was
Hmm.
always fine. But as it happens, I now own a house. And you know what? That is easier. I don't have to try and be
Hmm.
thinking, oh, rent's going up and moving to a new place and all that. It's a
Hmm.
privilege that, until I was thinking this the first time I looked at it, but I was like, oh, that's a privilege that I really haven't been thinking about because I had a stressor that has been reduced, and so I didn't notice it anymore. So anyway,
And that's a good
awesome.
point that, this changes over your lifetime. You could be
Right.
in one big circle and then switch to a small circle and then back to a medium. I mean, it can not all of these can or will change, but some
But
of
a
these
lot of
definitely can.
them can. It's
Hmm.
interesting. And so again, when you're dealing with other people, I think it's good to be thinking, not that you have to categorize other people, but just be thinking, oh, I see a big circle that you're working with. And so I know I'm going to try to help you in this area. I see a small circle that you're coming to me with, and so I understand that you have this level of privilege, and so maybe you're not going to immediately see this point. I'm going to make sure I make this point. Anyway, all right. I feel
Yeah.
like we have privileged the wheel. I do like it.
All right. Let's see. What's next? So we did have some discussion
We
questions
have
there.
discussed. Kaya and I are excellent discussers. You at home, you were discussing along with us. I know you were thinking about it too. If you didn't, feel free to pause and shout your view into the world. We'll hear you. We're waiting.
Or you could comment, right?
I
Is
mean,
that
I guess go
an
go
option?
nuts. YouTube people, like and subscribe. Mash that like button, people. Am I doing this
Indeed.
right? Does this feel like YouTube?
And there you go, Mary.
Ah,
Here are
I
the
do love
resources.
these. And so I'm a librarian, obviously. I'm a doctor of library science, and I very much like don't just say things. I like when people you don't just say things. This is where I got that idea from. This is where this material came from. Here's where, oh, you're interested? You like my academic wheel of privilege? No problem. Let me give you another one. Let me give you some more information. Let me give you something else. I mean, the point is we're all here to trying to learn good things. And thank you for putting the SETCC library resources first. I mean,
Of
are we
course.
the best place to go for materials? I mean, yes, obviously. But, not everyone recognizes the privilege that they have with
Hmm.
our over 780,000 digital items in our collection and our really, truly outstanding librarian support services.
Kudos.
I mean, if you can't brag about your library, what can you do? But I will say I am very conscious that having a good library is a privilege that many of our students have not experienced before and do not understand the value that we bring to their education. The students who do make the effort to come to the library, understand that they should come talk to me, understand that I'm here to help them find things. It's knowing that this even exists
Hmm.
and that it will help students to be better at their schoolwork. I mean, not everybody does, and I'm working on that. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, I do feel like understanding that resources are there to help you is a privilege that not everyone in our school possesses. Um,
Hmm.
Not just the library, but a lot of other resources. And I know we're all trying to work to flatten that and to make it easier for everybody to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Kaia,
It's
any last thoughts here today?
well, no, you've summarized and explained and shared so much,
Talked
and
aloud. Got that. I heard that.
yeah, I and definitely will subscribe.
We're not really that kind of YouTube channel, folks. We're just happy to have you here. All right, so we do have more coming in this series. If you haven't gone back and looked at some of our other video recaps, we've been doing these now for a couple of years, and sometimes they're a little shorter, sometimes they're a little longer, sometimes some of us maybe yak on a bit. I don't know if that's at all obvious, but it happens. But anyway, Kaya, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for bringing this to us. And if you are able to come to these sessions in person, of course, we're always thrilled to see you. But this is what we talked about in person. And I'm just happy that you were able to be here. Happy Kaya is able to be here. And I'm looking forward to our next topic. So stay with us. We'll be back with you again next video. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.